Hello friends, today we're doing another live stream. So this is going to be a Friday night casual live stream, and today I'm going to be doing the CodePen challenge. Now I've done a few of these CodePen challenges. We've done them week by week. They're sponsored by my employer, Pluralsight, and I've wanted to do a live stream, but I just couldn't get anything together and get the time to do it until today. Now, so what I'm going to do is do the week 4 challenge on CodePen.io. And I'll be honest that I don't have a specific plan or anything set out. I figured I'd just kind of go on there and code something up. I have a little idea of something I'd like to try. We'll see how it works, and we'll jump right in there. So, make sure all my stuff is good here. Turn this down a little bit. There we go, that should work. So another cool thing to note, this is also the first time I'm doing a stream on my Mac 1, or my M1 Mac. So I have the M1 Mac Mini. I've been doing a lot of stuff with it lately, and this is actually my first time streaming with it. So if any of you have questions, oh boy, Tom Massey's here already. What's up, Tom? Oh man, now I've got my first heckler. This is going to be difficult. Anyway, if you have any questions about the M1 or you want me to show you anything, this would be my first time streaming with it. So to go to CodePen.io and click on challenges. So this month's theme has been micro interactions. That's too loud for even me. I'm going to turn the music down again a little tiny bit. It's ridiculous. There we go. All right, so this month's theme has been micro interactions. And so the first one was on and off, and I did a small challenge here where it was like build a pen with a good on-off micro interaction. There was scrolling, click, things like that. This one is hide and reveal. So if we go here and go to instructions and resources, here's what the cool thing about CodePen.io and these challenges is you don't need a CodePen account. I have one just because I like to save CodePens and goof around with it. But you don't need a CodePen account. You don't need a Pluralsight account. You just need to go to CodePen.io/challenges, and you can find this challenge and take it yourself. So they give you a couple suggestions here. One reason you might choose to hide and reveal elements in a design is to save space. That's kind of cool. Making good decisions on when to hide or reveal elements. That's also kind of cool. So I think I'm just going to really wing it and build something. I've got this thing in my idea in my head, and it's actually, I was thinking of showing some images from last week's challenge, or maybe even the week before, where there was like a list of images. What I'm going to do is make like a little TV thing with some buttons that we can click to change those images. So we'll be doing a hide and reveal that's just for fun and art more than anything. So let's click Start a Pen. Here we go. So this week, so I've given you a little bit of scaffolding in the previous week's challenges. This one, it's just completely blank slate. HTML, CSS, JS, all completely blank. So it turns out my glasses are fogging up a little here. So this is just a perfectly blank slate. So let's just get started and throw a mess of divs in here. First div I'm going to build, let's see, do class. I should preface this by saying that I am not a CSS developer. You will see me looking up things that are absolutely silly and probably be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this guy is looking this up. I'm not a CSS developer, but I've done enough CSS in my lifetime to know the basics and know what to look for. That's the most important thing. And I'm going to go ahead and decline that call. So one thing I've noticed about Big Sur is the notifications. You can turn your notifications off, and it listens to most of them. Not all, as you can see. So I'm going to call this a button pad. We'll do our first CSS here. And what I'm going to do with the button pad is just make a series of 9 buttons, kind of like an old telephone. And let's see. I'm just going to put a border around it for now so I can see what it looks like. Picks. Okay, there's our cool button pad. All right. What I'm going to do is put 9 buttons in there. So we'll create a row. Say div class row. And within that row, I'll put in 3 buttons. I'll title this something. How's that for creative naming? Now I can save it, and it will quit barking at me to save it. So now we have a row. We'll do a div class of button. Look at this ID button 1. And I'll put the number 1 in there. This will be our 1, 2, and 3 buttons. Cool, right? It's almost starting to come together. Let's make a couple more rows. What's cool about this is I'm terrible at formatting some of this stuff, but if you click save, a lot of times it will format. Looks like it's not formatting the HTML like it does with CSS, but whatever. And I don't actually know that I need IDs for each of these buttons. I'm just putting it in here. Could end up being kind of a Yagni thing. All right, so now I have 9 buttons. Let's change what some of those buttons look like. We'll just start with our button class. I made it 200 pixels wide. So we'll just try 60 pixels. See how that looks. And I like to drop these borders in here just to see where the lines are at, and I can always change it later. And I think I need to float these. There we go. I'll definitely do something different with these later. I just kind of want to draw it out. So there's our button pad, right? We'll do text align. Probably play with the margins a little bit to make it. Oh, that didn't work. What I was thinking was padding. There we go. So we got a little bit of padding, so we'll take that height and adjust it appropriately. There we go. Padding top, probably going to have to be more like 25, looks like. Just trying to kind of center those numbers in there a little bit. This is one of the reasons I don't like CSS. It's always fiddling and messing with these little things. There we go. So now we've got some numbers centered in here. We've got IDs for each of the buttons. Let's center this thing. auto. There we go. Now at least that's centered. We'll center our rows also in the same exact method. That didn't work for the row class. So I've got a little bit of stuff hanging over the edge there. Might just take this width out of the button pad completely. Oh, that wasn't the great idea. Let's see if the padding, changing the padding instead. Oh, never mind, that's for my button pad. In my row, I will change the padding. Nope, that doesn't center it either. All right, we'll come back to that one. So we've got a little button pad here. So I do have some notes that I saved that I don't think any of these are going to apply, but they're little things like how to change a background image and things like that, because I forget a lot of things about CSS, honestly, a lot. Let's create a little function here. Actually, first I want to put, so I'll kind of explain my vision here. I'm going to take some images and put them kind of just to the left of this. So whenever I click 1, 2, 3, 4, it'll just kind of show and hide images in there. So I'm going to need to put that in there. So we'll wrap this button pad. We'll just call it container. Super original name. We'll throw a blue border around our container. How wide should we make this? 500 pixels? That works. We'll steal our margin stuff so we can center it. Okay, now I want my button pad to float to the right. Perfect-ish. And then I'm going to drop another container in here for the image. So we're going to say div, and I'm going to give this an ID. We want this to be unique, and we'll just call it image container. There we go. So a lot of you CSS folks are probably panicking over me using all these discrete pixel values, but we're just playing around and having fun. This isn't going to be responsive or anything like that. Probably not going to be all that accessible, but we'll see as time goes on. So for the image container, what do we want to do with that? Do width 100%. Okay, that did not work. Let's go 200 pixels either way. And since this is an ID, it would help if I make it an ID in CSS. There we go. Probably going to do 200 pixels either way. Let's see what that looks like. Cool. So now I have to figure out why I've just pushed my little button pad off here, right? Because like I said, I'm not a CSS expert. Float this left. There we go. It looks like we could probably get away with 300. Let's do 300. Yeah, or nah. Actually, let's do 300. And then let's make our container a little wider. Oh, and I'm looking in the chat room here. Clytosaurus Rex. Been following you for a while now. Thanks for all your training. I've been looking for your content on Pluralsight. Anything new coming in? Yes, I'm finishing up a course right now. And the only thing I can really say about it is it has to do with Vue and Jamstack. And it's going to be pretty cool. So I've done a lot of courses that have kind of related to IT and ops. And then recently I did a software development course that was a little new, the Go course. But this one's going more towards probably IT ops and a little bit of software development. So I'm going to show you how to deploy Vue sites to static hosts, and it's pretty cool. I can't wait to release it. Okay, container height should be a little more. There we go. So this looks clunky and terrible, but I'll fix it. Like I said, with CSS, I know what to look up. That's what my big secret is. So I've done enough CSS that I know what to look up where I'm like, oh, I need rounded corners on this. And then I know to look for something to make it rounded corners and things like that. That's one of my biggest tools when doing CSS, Stack Overflow. And W3 Schools. I know people talk a lot of smack about W3 Schools, but at the level that I use CSS, it's pretty great. A CSS professional, those people probably don't go to W3 Schools a lot. Okay, so now we've got this little thing here. We're going to take our button pad, push it down a little bit. It's kind of bothering me being up there. Okay, cool. So now we have this button pad. We have this no styles at all. Looks terrible. That's okay. For now, I want to make it functional. So I'm going to have to jump in here and throw some JavaScript in here. So I'm going to make a function. And I'm going to call it show image. We'll pass in an ID. So for now, we'll throw in an alert because I'm an amateur JavaScript programmer. The ID was, just to make sure this works. And here we'll put in on click. Show image 1. ID was 1. Perfect. Have I mentioned how much I love CodePen? So CodePen's really cool. If you go through some of my old CodePens I've saved on here, you can really see an interesting learning process. So some of the early ones I was just trying to do very basic things, and then as time went on, a little more complicated. One of the coolest things that I think about CodePen is there's no setup, there's no environment, there's no nothing, and you can just go in and start writing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to do a concept. Like I presented one time when I was a consultant And I was like, this is how I think we should do this D-pad thing. And I think that's still on my CodePen. But I actually used CodePen to demo it and everything. I just went in there and dumped it in. That way I could send it off to all the executives, down to the other developers, and be like, this is what it's going to look like. Is this cool? And it's much easier than any other method I could think of for sending someone something that simple. Okay, so now our little keypad should be sending an ID with everyone. ID was 1, ID was 9, ID was 5. Perfect. So let us start with colors. So if ID is 1, let's see, that's right, I've got to grab that. What did I name that? Image container. So get element by ID. So now I can grab my little image container. And we'll say if the ID is 1, image container, style, display. Actually, we won't do a display. We'll do, well, yeah, let's do a display none just to see if it works. So if I click any of these, nothing happens. But if I click 1, it should disappear. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So if I remember right, it's background image. Now I need to change this background image to something. Now I mentioned a previous CodePen challenge, so let's jump over there. They had a bunch of pictures of like fruits and stuff, so I believe it was scrolling. There it is. A little unsourced, unsplash here. So let's just steal some images out of here for this. I've never really used Unsplash in this way, but if you look, it's like image source, then it says source.unsplash.com, and it just spins up this image, which I think is cool. Oh, what is it? Background image. And then I think I need to do URL. Do I put quotes in there? I think I put single quotes in there. We will find out. Okay. There we go. So now we got fruits with number 1. So let's just keep going down. Actually, I'm going to use a switch statement here. I know most of the internet is not a fan of switch statements. I don't care. This works great. Switch ID. I've been doing so much Python lately that you might see me start typing and it'll start to look like Python a little bit. But that's just kind of where my head's been stuck. Thank you, Tom. Just check my... Tom, I'm going to bring you on my streams, and you know this. So right now I'm streaming through Restream, and I'm using OBS on this machine, but I recently started using StreamYard, and I'm going to set up a StreamYard thing with you, Tom, and I'm going to bring you in, and we're going to build something together. Even if it has to be in struts, we're going to do that. And Source Rex, did you try Advent of Code? I have not tried Advent of Code yet. I tried to do the 100 Days of Code and wasn't very successful. However, I have spent the last probably 100 days in a row coding for a project at work, so I probably should have done something with 100 Days of Code there, but that is something I will try very soon. So let's see if I remember how a switch statement in JavaScript works. I think it's pretty straightforward. Looks like. Let's copy this. Remove that if statement. All right, so if it's 1, save that. I better check my Spotify and make sure that I'm still on that no copyright list. Yep. So be sure to check out churnbeats.com, CHERNE beats.com. That's what I'm using here, and these are copyright-free beats to play when you're streaming. Much appreciated. The person that runs it is an awesome guy. He reached out to me at one point and said, hey, I know you're having problems with music on your stream. You can use mine free of charge. And that was pretty awesome. So let's see what we're going to do for number 2. For number 2, we're just going to take this second image down here. I apologize in advance. This portion might be slow, but we're going to dump 9 images in here. But first, we need to verify the functionality of the switch statement. We do that by pressing 1 and then pressing 2. Cool. So this is a convenient show and hide, right? This is show and hide, which is the essence of the challenge. So we are showing and hiding. And I'm sure you can do this with CSS. I just don't know how off the top of my head, so I'm using JavaScript. What I'm going to do is just take this little code block that I'm making here, and I'm going to copy it a bunch of times. Because that's what we do as developers. We copy and paste. Let's see, case 2, 3, 4. Isn't this fun? Isn't this the most exciting stream you've ever tuned into? This guy's like copying and pasting stuff. I bet there's even better way to do this that I am unaware of, like probably a way smarter way to do this. But for now we've got, and then it should repeat that same image. So we'll just go back and we'll replace these images so that we have 9 images. We left off at number 3. So we'll go here, grab this. And I'm just going to steal all of these little unsplash images out of here. This is going to be cool. It's going to be mostly useless, but pretty cool. I decided to do something a little artsy for this rather than functional. And that's just the kind of choices you make on a Friday night. So number 7. That's right, 7. So quick sanity check. Make sure we are producing different images for each. Okay, so now I just need 8 and 9. Let's see what number 8 is going to be. Save that. And just as a reminder, I am saving it. This URL here, it'll be accessible if you want to fork it and make it better. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, that's terrible. 7, 8, 9. Okay, so we have different fruits for every single different button here. Cool. Now we should try to find a way to make it a little prettier, right? So we have our show and hide. We've got a switch statement here. We could make this go on and on forever. But let's make this a little pretty. I'm going to go to a gradient generator. Oh, see, you can see I've used this recently. Gradientmagic.com. Very cool. So what kind of background do we want to put in here? Subtle background. Oh, I like this stained glass. This looks kind of cool. Green. We'll do this one. This one looks pretty sweet. So this is one of the cool things about Gradient Magic, however you pronounce it, is you just copy the CSS and it does all of this with CSS. So this is going to be our body background. Let's see how much code they give me. Do they give me an actual... No, they don't wrap it. Okay. Actually, I'm going to put this at the bottom because I'm not going to change it or mess with it, so... Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Actually, it didn't quite turn out as good as I thought it would. I thought it was going to look cooler than that. Let's try something else. That looks ridiculously bad. GeoCities looking. How about a subtle grid? Now these are cool because you can choose the colors. So if you want to go with your like particular branding or whatever, you can do that. Let's throw this CSS in and see if this looks a little bit better than this terrible plaid that I came up with. Oh, that looks much better. So now I need to kind of do the same thing with this big container that covers everything. So we'll do a background color there. Well, that is very odd. One of my lights just instantly got brighter. It's never done that before. Remote controlled, and I have no idea how that happened, but now we have gray. Actually, I'm going to show all the cool tools. So if you search for HTML color picker, you can get this W3 Schools one, which, as you can see, it's purple. I've been there recently. Or you can just go here and say, what color do I really want for a background? For this one, I think I just want kind of a gray. Let's go back to Gradient Magic here and see if we can maybe create some kind of different background for that. See all collections. Subtle textures. Look at that. Gingham. Could do total picnic blanket look. Futuristic stripes. I think standard. Let's do a standard gray one that's like edit colors. We'll start with a dark one. We'll make it go a little lighter. See, isn't the internet amazing? I think that might be kind of cool for the background. Now, do I want dark on the bottom or on the top? That's the question. Or, I kind of like this look, so I'll copy this CSS. And in our container, we'll dump this. Yeah, that looks a lot cooler. I'll probably change it later. And I still need to fix my button container because it's off, as you can see. It's not quite centered. I believe there's a website. How to center things in CSS. Oh, there we go, w3.org. Centering length of text, centering a block or image, centering vertically and horizontally. Centering the viewport, there's all kinds of stuff. But there was a really cool website that I found. How to center anything with CSS. This is probably the article. How to center a div with CSS margin auto, margin 0 auto. Let's try it. I know I've used that before on other things. So let's try that on our button container. So this is our main container. Where's our image? Pad, row, button. I don't remember where my button container went. I think it's, yeah, it's just, that's right. Yeah, slash container. And then button pad, I don't believe I've even created. Yeah, I've created a button pad. That did not center it. That wasn't the right move. See this? We get to learn together. All right, checking, making sure all my streams are up. Perfect. So, yeah, this thing should, I've got to float it right in order for the actual keypad part of it to work. I probably should put a default image in there really, but. So for my button pad, I have margin top of 50. What happens if I increase this width a little bit? It falls right out. Isn't CSS wonderful? Let's see, 220. So that actually centers it just by making it 220. I think that will probably be good enough for me for now. I'm going to get rid of this border because I just want the buttons centered. So let's save this. Let's make these buttons look cool. Now I mentioned radiusing them. Let's put in a border radius here. Oh, and I don't remember exactly. I might have to look that up. I don't remember exactly how to. I think it's like 1 pix, black. Nope. Let's look up border radius. Mozilla Development Network. Oh yeah, so you can do this by percentages or by pixels. I'll probably do it by pixels. But you can change the, so you can change each one. So if I do border radius 30 pixels for each one, or you can do something like that. It's kind of cool. I think we're just going to do a quick Oops, I changed the wrong one. Five pixels. That looks pretty good. Now we need to change the face of these. And I will be right back. I'll just pop open the chat room. And I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Another thing that's kind of cool. So I just recently set up the streaming setup. And as I said, this is like the first time I've streamed from this M1. But I decided to do a little new branding, which you can see. And I also decided to do multiple camera angles. Check that out. So we got this camera angle here, talking into here. If for some reason I want to go over here, I can go over here. And I can do it on the dev window also. So you can look at, like, stare at the side of my head or the front of it. Kind of cool, right? Really trying to improve the quality of my streaming experience. Okay, so now we've got buttons here. Maybe we should change the font, but now we've got it rounded. Let's space them out a little bit. So every time I make a change to this button, it's like a base class, so it will basically change every single button. Let's say margin of 2 pixels. Look at that. That kind of spaces them out a little bit. I like that. Can we do 3? We can do 3. So now we've got them spaced out a little bit. Now we need to do that margin top, and we need to adjust it a little bit with that much spacing. There we go. Now it's a little more centered. Now you'll notice we have this background image here, this gray background image. We don't want that to bleed through on the buttons. So all we have to do is apply a background color to the buttons. And actually we could apply the exact same background image to it. Let's try it. It's probably not the one I'll stick with, but yeah, that looks pretty cheesy. That looks very 90s. But we can change it to whatever we like. For now, let's do background, color. Let's make it kind of a lighter gray. Go back to our HTML color picker. I want to make it probably right about there. So we'll copy that. There, that looks pretty good. Now let's round the entire container. And that would be our container. Just to see what it looks like. Looks like it rounds these, but it doesn't round these. Because our image container would have to be round, right? So now the entire container is round. However, I don't want these little parts to be round. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to figure that out. There we go. That one's 0. Oops. The other one's 0. It looks like there's a little bit of rounding there. Make this one 0. Oh, we're almost there. Okay, let's start with all zeros. Okay, none of them 0. We'll just change these to figure out. There we go. There's the top right, or top left. We change this one. Nope, we want that one to be 0. And then I believe we want this one to be 5. Nope, we want that one to be 0 also. We want this one to be 5. There we go. Now we have the 2 rounded corners out here, but it's not rounded here because I didn't want them rounded there. So now that looks pretty cool, right? We can put a drop shadow in here. Let's put a drop shadow. And let's just Google it. CSS drop shadow. I've been here recently. As you can see, did a lot of playing around with CSS recently for a project that I'm working on. I didn't implement everything, but yeah, let's do this box shadow. As you can see here, we can do a blur. So as it starts out, you can just apply the shadow, which we're going to do box shadow because this is not text, but so let's go back to our container. We'll change this to box shadow. That's weird. All right, so now we got some box shadow. 10 pixels, that looks like distance. This is probably the amount it's blurred. Oh, that's, I see. So we can change our distance here. And then that's the blur. So maybe I want the box shadow on the other side. Is that how it works? There we go. So now we got the box shadow here. I know box shadows are kind of out of style nowadays. Everyone likes these flat designs, which I do too, but I just want to do a box shadow here. That looks a little bit better if we make it more subtle. And then I believe the last one is a color. Let's find out. Or maybe we'll just do red. Yeah, so the last one's color. What color do we want this to be? Let's go back to our picker. HTML color picker. What would be a good color for that? Give it some glow. Now if we look at our existing images, I think probably like almost like a teal blue color would be kind of cool. So let's just try it and see what it looks like. We're both going to find out at the same time whether this looks cool or not. So for our box shadow, we'll just drop in a hex here. I think that looks okay. There's a kind of a neon vibe to it. Maybe some more blur might make it look better. Yeah, that's okay. Now, here's some things that we can try. I'll check my chat room, see if anyone's there. Let's try making these buttons do something when we hover over them, when we click them, things like that. That's pretty common these days. So we have button. I'm going to put this class right below. Button hover. I believe that's what it is. Maybe it's not hover. It is. There we go. I'm not sure why the hover isn't working. Try active. That's when we're clicking it. Okay, so it is changing the border. As you can see, when it's active, when I'm clicking it, it changes the border. Let's see, hover. So I'm not sure why it isn't changing the background color. I feel like it should be. It's changing the border. But I don't understand pseudo elements really well, so 1, 2, 3. Yep. So what's something that we could do to make this? We could probably shift it over. That might be kind of cool. So if we hover over it, but when we click it, it shifts. So let's change this to active. Okay, now it's only blue when it's active. So let's shift it over a couple of pixels. To do that, I'm going to Google CSS transforms. Check that out. CSS transforms are pretty cool. So you can scale, you can rotate, you can skew. I think scale would probably be the way I want to go with it. So let's copy this. Let's make it look smaller, as if it's being clicked and it kind of scrunches down and gets smaller. Probably not that small and not that scaled away, right? Actually, I don't even think I want this translate, because that is what's sending it off the map. There we go. See, now when I click on it, let's scale it down even more. Now it looks like I'm actually pushing a button, and I don't like that scale, so maybe 0.9 is better. There we go. Now it looks like we're actually clicking a button. Like you can see it visually being clicked. I'll look at you. We could put an inner shadow on that so it looks like it's being pressed down. So let's put a drop shadow on the button. And we did that up here. We did this box shadow. Let's do a similar box shadow on the button. Except we're not going to make it glow. And we're not going to go this wild with it. We could use some more blur. I think this is reasonable. Now it looks like the buttons are kind of floating. And what we can do is we can remove this or reduce it when we click on it, to give it the idea that it has a shadow because it's sitting up above that plane, but once we click on it, it's no longer above that plane. So that's what we're going to do. There we go. See how that gives it kind of a visual. Looks like we're really moving buttons here. We can even cut the blur down a little bit. I like that. 1, 2, 3. We can do some inner shadows with this. Let's do some inner shadows. There we go, inner shadow. And it looks like we use inset for that. So we'll do the Moz WebKit. We'll just do all of them. And let's see what that looks like on our little button here. Cool. And see how it disappears? Well, we've got a little inner shadow here. And I don't know if I even want this much inner shadow. So I'm going to bring it down to 5. That's a little more like it. Now when I click on it, I still want some inner shadow, but I want a little bit less inner shadow. Maybe even brighten it a little. Let's see. So when it's active, this is fun. So for those of you who are just tuning in, we are doing the CodePen challenge. So if you go to codepen.io/challenge, we're doing the week 4 challenge, which is a show and hide challenge. And that's what we're doing here today. So I'm going to pull this border out of here. I just did that to verify that it was working. Let's change this to like 2 pixels. Yeah, maybe more. 3. Okay, so that's definitely giving it a little more of a realistic look to it. Now remember, you can go to codepen.io/challenges and submit your own. When you create it, it's a perfectly blank slate. Like this was all created from pretty much nothing. And then it gets tagged with CPC challenge and something else. Let me see, I'll check the settings. It gets tagged with CodePen challenge and CPC-hide reveals so that other people can see it. And I've been checking those and kind of looking at them, you know, as this challenge has been going on. So if you build something cool, make sure and tag it with that. And I might see it and tweet about it or talk about it or just add you as a friend on CodePen. I don't know. So what else could I do with this? I kind of almost want to see what that looks like white, so I've done similar silly things before with these buttons. Yeah, see, with white it kind of looks cool. So this looks like a button that's being pressed down. And I almost want to swap these just to see if when it's pressed down it looks like it's... Let's do that. Let's just swap them. Now I've got this little white kind of edge to it. When we press it, that will go away and a shadow will appear. Let's see what that looks like. Interesting that it does not like that because of this box shadow that I created earlier. There we go. So that kind of almost looks like, and I think I like it better the other way. Even though technically I think if it were up off of that plane, it would have light hitting it. And if you press it, it wouldn't. But, yeah, just not a big fan of that. So let's see. Maybe if we press it and just make a shadow on two corners of it. Let's try that. Let's go back to our box shadow and see horizontal offset, then vertical offset, blur radius, spread radius. Now what happens when we throw more values in here? I'm just curious how I can break this. It's the essence of development, my friends. Just seeing what happens when you throw random values in there. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of this, so I'm just going to switch it back. I think it looked a little more realistic the other way. I don't know why, but that looks more realistic to me. Even though the scale is a little bit exaggerated. There, that's a scale I can handle. So how do we do a box shadow on only two sides? Let's find out. Say two side. Left and right sides only. Multiple box shadows. Interesting. Let's just copy and paste right out of Stack Overflow. One for each side, it says. I don't know if I like that idea, but we'll try it. So with this one, I can see there is, so we'll take our, let's see. Yeah, we'll just take our inset ones. We'll stack them. These are inset box shadows. Looks like you can't really stack it with inset in quite the same way, can you? That totally breaks it. That looks somewhat terrible. So I'll have to research that one later. For now, this looks pretty cool. Now, some thinking about doing a visited one. Let's change it so when we hover over it that it does something different. We could probably even just rob these styles out of here. Hover, and for scale, we'll do 1.1. So now there we go. It gets a little bigger when you hover over it, and then smaller when you click it. Yeah. For some reason that messes with the active quite a bit, doesn't it? Interesting. So I wonder if it's the order in which I'm putting them in. I'll stack this above. Yeah, interesting. Learn something new about CSS. Just about every time I use it, I learn something new. So now we hover over it, it gets a little bigger. We click it. Looks like an actual button click. Let's do something with that font. Fonts. That I know I've been in here recently. What kind of? Let's do this for the whole thing. Go back down to the body. There, that looks less terrible. Let's change the color of these guys here. I believe it's just color. Yep. So let's go back to our color picker really quick. Where was our color picker? We'll close some of these transforms, blah, blah, blah. How to center stuff. Here's our color picker. Let's make it just a subtle lighter gray for that. Just see what it looks like. Yep, nope, don't like it. We'll make it darker. So when we click on it, we'll make it lighter. How about that? So we'll make it like right around here to start. And then we click it. Do we want it to get darker or lighter? I think we should make it a little lighter. When we hover, we could make it light up bright. Let's try that. Yeah, that's cool. And then once it's active, we'll make it dark. Just some basic, good old-fashioned CSS. Button active. How did that break it? Oh, there we go. We have one more we could do. We could do visited. So that if you've clicked on it, we'll make it, we'll like dim it or something. So it's button visited. What should we do for button visited? We could do, we could remove all the shadowing. Color green? I don't know, just to see. It doesn't look like visited is really working. Actually, I don't really want that functionality. So now I'm thinking these buttons should be maybe more of a white color. So for the background color, that looks much cooler. And of course now the hover doesn't really work, so let's do different shades of white. So we'll make the hover brighter and then the clicked dimmer, but we'll do it all in kind of white colors. So we'll do a little darker here. And what I'm going to do is go to just button base class and make that this color. Okay, that was wrong. That was the font. The background color. We will make this color. So now it's kind of an off-white background color. When we hover it, we'll want it to be completely white. So we'll say there we go. Now it's a brighter white, and then we'll make this color black. There, I like that. That looks pretty good. And when we click down on it, we'll make it darker than the color that we started with. So we'll go back to our color. We'll even go like something like this. We'll make it darker. So button active. That's perfect. A little darker. When it hovers, it gets... That's pretty cool. So this is my submission. Check the chats. So this is my submission for this code challenge. And what it is just show and hide. I think a lot of the suggestions there went towards usability, where this is just more kind of artsy and kind of silly. But just to recap what we've done, so I made a bunch of divs here, and I made a keypad, made an image container, which has nothing in it by default. And then on each of these buttons, we have a show image, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then our show image function here just grabs that element and changes the style based on a switch statement here. So whichever ID I pass into switch here, or pass into show image, whether that ID is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, comes through here, switch statement grabs it, which one is it, and changes it to a background image from one of those. So it shows a different image for every single click. So we're using a little bit of JavaScript here. As I said, this could probably, I'm 99% certain this can be done with CSS. I don't know how. I wanted to do just kind of a neat little JavaScript solution so that we have a combination of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript doing this. And as you click this, you can look at a different fruit. And then what we did after that, so after I made this JavaScript that changes the background image depending on when you click it, which one you click, We put a little spacing between them. We rounded off the buttons. We put some shadows in there, and then we changed the shadows based on their state. So we're using these pseudo classes here like button hover, button active, and we're just kind of changing the state so it looks a little more animated, right? So we're putting a little more animation in there, and it's kind of skeuomorphic a little bit in that this looks like an actual button, even though buttons on a telephone won't necessarily pop up and get brighter when you hover your finger over them, but we're close, right? When you press it down, we make it darker with no shadow, so it looks like it's actually being pressed down. And then we rounded off the corners. We threw in a little background glow. And so we've got this, if you look at this background here that we generated, and then this background glow, it's got this weird like 80s VHS look to it, which is kind of cool, I guess. And then we have, you know, rounded, the whole platform's rounded. Buttons are rounded, but yet the image, we rounded the image at the edges here, but we did not round it here because I didn't think that would really look that cool. So this is my show and hide submission here. And it's kind of in the spirit of hide and reveal, right? So that's basically what the idea of this CodePen challenge is. Let's look at some of the other submissions here. So we've got my ugly button pad. This was one of my favorite ones, so I'll pop this up. And I'm going to click that I like it. So this one's kind of cool in that it picks up on numbers that you enter. Enter your PIN code. So I was pretty impressed with this. This is a definite cool show and hide because you type 1 and it spins in and comes up. So check out this one, Emilian Leroy. I decided to follow him on CodePen and Twitch because he built this on Twitch a while back, and I think this is really cool. Here's the info here if you would like to follow him. This was one of the ones that I thought was really cool. Let's look at some of the other ones that we have here. Some of the other ball pit with something to hide. Oh, that is clever. I like it. So this is my mouse cursor. So if we're looking at this, you know, this is a ball pit. We all know what a ball pit is. And if you move your mouse cursor, there's our hidden text. I'm going to like that one also. That's very cool. Ball pit with something to hide. Let's see some other submissions. Newsletter input button. This one's probably a little more useful, right? Request newsletter. Huh. I like that. It's like a couple of rotating cubes there. Going to press the like button on that one from Brett Morton. That one's very cool. So there's still a few days left of this coding contest. If you want to go to codepen.io/challenges. Keep calling it a contest. It's a challenge. And what these are is these challenges, they do them every week and they just challenge you to build something using this theme. And Pluralsight sponsored it this month. And it's just kind of a cool way to build some code and play with some things. There's no pressure, nothing else. Some of the best ones will be featured on CodePen's front page. So this one, I'm not really sure how this is supposed to interact or if it's supposed to interact. I mean, by itself, standalone, if this is all done with CSS, this is super impressive that they, yeah, this person was able to basically render a Nintendo DS. That's impressive. It doesn't seem to do anything. There's not like a show and hide that I can see, but I'm still thoroughly impressed with that rendering. Let's check out this one. My secret. Hover over the cards from left to right to find out my secret. I am a sloth. Shocking, right? Pretty cool. I like it. I give it 10 stars, and I never give 10 stars. Let's see, a modal. Everyone likes a good modal, right? Yeah, that's pretty cool. Terms and conditions. All right, well, I think I'm going to wrap this stream up. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. You can see, so today I streamed to Twitch, Facebook, and I'll check some of my numbers there really quick. Let's see, we've got Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Periscope. And I can see that I've got quite a few followers watching on all of those, so I want to say thank you. That is very cool, very awesome. I definitely appreciate everybody following me and my silly adventures on here. So when I planned this out today, I just was kind of like, I want to do a CodePen challenge. I've wanted to do it, like I said, all month. And today I just happened to have the time. Unfortunately, I didn't sit down and plan out anything really good. So this is just kind of, if you've been watching, you could see that it was just spur of the moment, wild coding, put it together. But we've got something cool here. I think it's kind of nice. It's a neat demonstration of some show and hide stuff. If like one person favorites this thing or puts a little heart button on it, then that will make me smile, because then I know that they'll probably steal something out of here. Like they'll steal some of the CSS or JS, or even just steal the idea and do something better. And that's the big point of it. So I'm going to do this again. My attention was brought to this recently. Like I said, Pluralsight sponsored this month's code challenges. You can see here with our Tech Skills Day, which I was a part of. That was so fun and so awesome. But I'm going to do this again. Like I'm going to come back to these CodePen challenges and do this again. And if my CSS skills improve in the near future, then I'll build cooler stuff. So maybe this will be a little bit of a forcing function for me. My CSS has always been like, I need to put something together and make it work for this project. Never been a big, strong CSS person, but that's something that I should probably change. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try to get better, right? Anyway, thank you everybody for joining in. I appreciate it. Including some of my friends who I thought were going to heckle me, but they did not. Next time, I assure you, he will. And go ahead and follow me. If you like this stream, if this was interesting, if this was cool, follow me. I've got all my little links down there. Follow me on Twitch and YouTube. I'm going to stream on Twitch, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and Facebook, probably pretty much every time I stream. I've got some streaming ideas coming up. I'm going to be streaming for pluralsight.com also, where I work, and we're going to be doing some really cool streaming stuff there. So keep an eye on it, and go ahead and follow Pluralsight on all of those channels to see what myself and other people will be doing on there. Anyway, thank you very much for following me, and I will be on again very soon.